Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hello everyone. We are from Group 5. Want to present about kinds of test and testing. Hi, my name is Alifania Diah Anggraeni.
Hello, my name is Btari Ivena Ithop.
Hello everyone, my name is Aolia Maelani.
Understanding the different types of testing, the kinds of results they provide, and how they complement one another help teachers determine what the best course of action is. There are 9 types of testing. First, proficiency test. Second, achievement test. Third, diagnostic test. Fourth, placement test. Fifth, direct versus indirect testing. Sixth, discrete point versus integrative testing. 7. Norm reference set versus criterion reference testing. 8. Objective testing versus subjective testing. 9. Communicative language testing. And then I will explain what proficiency test, achievement test, and diagnostic test. Definition of proficiency test. Proficiency tests are designed to measure people's ability in a language regardless of any training they may have had in that language. The content of a proficiency test, therefore, is not based on the content or objectives of language courses which people taking the test may have followed. The aims of proficiency test to show whether candidates have reached a certain standard with respect to certain specified abilities. Example of proficiency test. An example of this would be a test designed to discover whether someone can function successfully as a United Nations translator. Another example would be a test used to determine whether a student's English is good enough to follow a course of study at a British university. Definition of achievement test. Achievement test is a test which measures how much of a language someone has learned with reference to a particular course of study or program of instruction. Therefore, the content of achievement test is based on what has been taught. The aims of achievement test: to establish how successful individual students, groups of students, or the courses themselves have been in achieving objectives. Example of achievement test. For example, a course may have as an objective the development of conversational ability, but the course itself and the test may require students only to utter carefully prepared statement about their hometown, the weather, or whatever. There are 2 types of achievement test. First, final achievement test, and the second, progress achievement test.
Final achievement test. Final achievement tests are thus administered at the end of course of study. Progress achievement tests. Progress achievement tests are intended to measure the progress that students are making. One way of measuring progress would be repeatedly to administer final achievement tests, the increasing score indicating the progress made.
The disadvantage of achievement test. The disadvantage is that if the syllabus is badly designed, or the books or another materials are badly chosen, then the result of a test can be very misleading. Definition of diagnostic test. diagnostic test is a test designed to show what skills or knowledge a learner knows and doesn't know. Although the term diagnostic test is widely used, few tests are constructed solely as diagnostic tests. Diagnostic tests are used to identify students' strengths and weaknesses. Example of diagnostic test. For example, whether she or he had mastered the present perfect or past tense distinction in English. In order to be sure of this, we will need a number of examples of the choice the student made between the two structures in every different context, which we thought was significantly different and important enough to warrant obtaining information on. A single example of each would not be enough, since a student might give the correct response by change. The types of diagnostic tests. There are three types of diagnostic tests. There is first, named as discrimination test, second, grammar and usage test, and the third is certain controlled reading test.
Hi everyone, so I'm Aolia Maelani and I will talk about the next kind of test, continuing of what my friend has said. The next topic is placement test. Placement testing is to determine your current level of skills and knowledge in various fields like kind of reading, writing, and math. A placement test can be both in order of an association and or the aim of the test. Example for a paid placement test is like UTBK or SBMPTN, whereas you bought the ticket which costs 200 rupiah just so you're able to test and get any chances to enter your dream university. The free placement test example is like a high school placement test as to divided students into three groups of classes: science, language, and social. The next topic that I brought is direct versus indirect test. Direct test requires the candidate to perform precisely the skill which we wish to measure, while an indirect test attempts to measure the abilities which underlie the skills in which we are interested. Direct testing is inevitably limited to rather small sample of times, which may call on a restricted and possibly unrepresentative range of grammatical structures. While indirect testing offers the possibility of testing a representative sample of a finite number of abilities which underlie a potentially infinitely large number of manifestations of them. Last, direct tests are generally easier to construct, simply reinforces the view with respect to institutional tests, so that there greater potential for beneficial backwash. While again the indirect tests, the relationship between the performance on them and performance of the skills in which we are usually more interested tends to be rather weak in strength and uncertain in nature. The example for direct test is when your pronunciation ability being tested directly with speaking, while the example for indirect test is more complex, like when your listening ability is being tested, in which the candidate has to identify pairs of words which rhyme with each other, then write the words on a paper. The last topic that I brought is discrete point test versus integrative tests. Discrete point test is the test that testing one element at a time, item by item. The example for a discrete point test is like a grammatical structure test, where the candidate needs to point it out which the best grammar to use at for a whole sentence. Integrative test, by contrast, requires the candidate to combine many language elements in the completion of a text. This might involve writing a composition, making notes while listening to a lecture, taking a dictation, or completing a closed passage. Discrete point tests most likely to be indirect tests, while the iterative tests will tend to be direct tests. So that's all from me. The next topics will be carried out by Alifania.
Hi everyone, I am Alifania Diah Anggraeni, and I'll continue the discussion about the last three types of test and testing. First, I'll explain about non-reference versus criterion reference testing. Definition of non-reference testing refers to standardized test. Is an assessment and test that are designed to compare and rank test takers in relation to one another. To determine a young child's readiness for preschool or kindergarten, these tests may be designed to measure oral language ability, visual motor skills, cognitive, and social development. Typical of these tests are standardized tests like SAT or TOEFL. Each test taker's scores is interpreted in relation to mean or average score, median, middle score, standard deviation, or extent of variance in score, and or percentile rank. Non-reference scores are generally reported as a percentage or percentile ranking. For example, a student who scores in the 70th percentile performed as well or better than 70% of other test takers of the same age or grade level, and 30% of students performed better, as determined by norming group scores. So, these tests are intended to be administered to large audience, with results efficiently disseminated to test takers. And the aims of non-reference testing is to place test takers along a mathematics continuum in an order rank. And next, definition of criterion reference testing, also called mastery test, is an assessment and test that measures students' performance. Also, this measures the performance of the students alongside fixed criteria. These criteria include written and brief reports of what students are capable of doing at different stages. Criterion reference tests have been compared to driver's license exams, which require would-be drivers to achieve a minimum passing score to earn a license. Criterion reference tests created by individual teachers are also very common in American public schools. So, the teacher may design a test to evaluate student understanding of the criteria and determine a minimum passing score. The aims of criterion reference testing is to classify people according to whether or not they are able to perform some task or set of tasks satisfactorily. The types of criterion reference testing are multiple choice questions, true or false questions, and open-ended questions. Is a questions that ask students to write a short response or an essay. For example, who did you see the movie with? Where Where did you go to see the movie? What was your favorite part of the movie? How was the movie? And when did you see the movie? But in this test, avoid to asking why questions. The characteristics of criterion reference testing are authority. It actually whether they measure what it claims or not. An individual item matches with its goal. Also, if the situation and performance specified in the aim signify in the item or not. Next is consistency. It means that it always measures what it states. Also, consistency means if they have a high degree of confidence in the scores or not. Any random error in the tool can make it unreliable. Next is practically. Not all assessment is reliable because of cost and time. It is not always possible to design reliable and accurate tests. Also, the decision should considerably relate to important factors. Next, subject mastery. This helps in the pathway the performance of students within the course of study. Also, test items can be made to match precise purposes. Criterion reference test also judges how well the student knows and understands the topic. And last is manage locally. Generally, this develops at the classroom level. Also, the teacher can easily check if the standards are met or not. Besides, they also identify shortages. Results of tests are quickly obtained to give students helpful feedback on performance. Definition of objective testing is a test consisting of factual questions requiring extremely short answers that can be quickly and unambiguously scored by anyone with an answer key, thus minimizing subjective judgments by both the person taking the test and the person scoring it. The aims of objective testing is to assess a specific part of the learner's knowledge using questions which have a single correct answer. The characteristics of objective testing are to ensure perfect objectivity in scoring. It can be scored objectively and easily. It takes less time to answer than an essay test. And the test can be answered by a word, a phrase, a number, or symbol. The types of objective questions are multiple choice items, true or false items, matching items, assertion reason items, and essays. And next is subjective testing. Definition of subjective testing is a type of test in which the scores are influenced by the judgment of the evaluator, meaning there is no one correct answer. So, this is the opposite of objective testing. The aims of subjective testing is to assess areas of students' performance that are complex and qualitative, using questioning which may have more than one correct answer or more ways to express it. The characteristics of subjective testing are: subjective items are generally easier and less time-consuming to construct than are most objective test items. Different readers can rate identical responses differently. The same reader can rate the same paper differently over time. The types of subjective questions are essay questions, short answers, definitions, scenario questions, and opinion questions. And the third, also the last kinds of test and testing is communicative language testing. Definition of communicative language testing is a test of learners' language performance in meaningful or real-life situations between learners and teachers. This test doesn't only test the learner's competence, but also encourages a cycle of intention, action, and reflection, facilitated by contextualized situations, which appeal to the student's reality, thus becoming meaningful and self-motivated. The types of communicative language testing are grammatical competence. Is about knowledge of systematic features of grammar, lexis, and phonology. Next is sociolinguistic competence. Is about knowledge of rules of language use in terms of what is appropriate in different contexts. Next, strategic competence is ability to compensate for incomplete or imperfect linguistic resources in a second language by using other successful communication strategies. And last, discourse competence is ability to deal with extended use of language in context, cohesion, and coherence. Okay, that's all the presentation from Group 5, which discusses about kinds of test and testing. We hope it's useful for all of you. More or less, we are really sorry. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you.